Start again. Relax your mind. Focus on your power. Control it. Start again. Relax your mind. Focus on your power.
Oh, I have a show to do. I was totally hypnotized by today's guest, and you will be too, today on Live and Queer. Welcome to Live and Queer, QCC's Queer Arts Show. I'm your host, Maya Chinchilla, like tortilla, and today's guest is Anand, like Anand Kalra. He's a singing, dancing, filmmaking triple threat and QCC's executive director. Anand is hip deep planning this year's National Queer Arts Festival, as well as his own docu-musical, Octavia of Earth. So let's bring him on and talk about it. Anand Kalra, everyone.
Hi, so glad to be here. Hi, Maya.
Hi, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Oh my gosh, what a joy, what a pleasure.
Yes, we get to talk about art and you.
Yeah, I mean, people's favorite topics, right? Talking about themselves and talking about the things they create.
Yes, but first, before we get into all of that good stuff, let's take a look at some of your work. We're going to see patterns from Octavia of Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Every morning I come here, I toil till my fingers ache. Everyone around me moves, consumed to meet the frantic pace. Monotony kills my brain cells. My stories are unplanted seeds. Characters can't reach me when my mind is too numb to weave the patterns of my days, the patterns lost in a haze.
Every night after midnight, you call me from a distant place. You dance around me ethereal, but never see my face. The patterns of your ways, patterns keep me locked in a cage.
Through generations of nations,
Set me free,
men beat their fists at the sky,
set me free,
trapped against the planet's crust,
Set me free.
nowhere to flee.
set me free. They need a better solution
I can
than
free.
wage an endless war.
I can
They
free.
need a God who can make them
I have
better.
control.
Set me free.
I'll set you free.
Years go on, I work till I die. Nowhere to flee.
Need to be free. I'll make a power
A deity,
who can shape a better humankind.
a common understanding.
A universal mind of my mind, of my mind. Patterns. I'll make new patterns in my life. Patterns, new patterns. I'll print the copies in their minds, a template meant to stand the test of time.
Wow, that was so beautiful. I love it. I love it. Can you tell me a little bit more about this project, Octavia of Earth?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's one of my favorite songs
Oh,
that we
really?
created
Okay.
for it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so Octavia of Earth started as a project back in 2016. So
Oh, okay.
you'll see on the poster next to me that's T. Carlos Roberts, formerly of the Singing Boys, and that's me.
Yay.
So
I love
this
tea.
was our National Queer Arts Festival show back in 2016, and we put together this
Oh,
musical
wow.
review. And then it
Uh-huh.
was over, and we were both sad. And I texted T, and I was like, "Do you want to write a musical together?" And he texted back and was like, "I was going to ask you the same thing." And
Aw.
yeah, so it was just this like really beautiful, having this seed of being, in the creating queer communities program through
Yeah.
QCC was my, first big. It was the biggest thing I had done at the time. And so to be able to grow that forward felt really nice. So T and I sat down, we are trying to think about, okay, what are topics? And we landed pretty quickly on the idea of doing biography because then,
Oh, okay.
because then you don't have to like come up with all of the characters and come up with all of the storylines. There's stuff that's done for you.
And then what's the connection to Octavia Butler? You know, Octavia Butler is like someone who has inspired a lot of people. She's a prolific science fiction writer.
It's stories from her life. So T and
Oh,
I
okay.
got to go down and to the archives, the Huntington Library that has her papers. And so, one of the first things we read there was her teenage diary and
What?
got to see her family photos. And she kept journals, all through the years and all these correspondence.
Yeah.
So and we've only sampled maybe 10% of what's there, maybe that. And so from that first couple of research trips, we kind of centered around 9 different moments in her life,
Okay.
and then we created scenes around those. T and I started working together. We created 3 scenes together, and then the Singing Boys was taking off, so T decided to go focus on the Singing Boys, and I was
Okay.
like, "Oh crap! I can't do this by myself, and I shouldn't do it by myself." Like really, like
Yeah.
the whole point of doing this thing was to take someone who, in the popular imagination, right, you just say the word Octavia Butler, the name Octavia Butler, and people are like, "Oh my God, I love her." And then sometimes you get farther in the conversation, and you're like, "Oh, what are some of what's some of her work that you like?" And people will
Right.
realize, "Oh my God, I've actually never read anything of her. She's just this idea." And so we wanted to take this idea of her as an oracle and a prophet and get under that and see who was she as a person. Very much about taking her off the pedestal and just be someone that we walk next to and can learn from.
Yeah.
So the volume 1, which we, so when I say we, here's who's the the key people involved. So Adrian Applin played Octavia, sang all of the role as Octavia from childhood songs through adulthood songs through end of life. What a weight on the shoulders of someone to try and interpret this person who's so significant for so many people in our community. So Adrian, and then Jocelyn Mathis Reed and Ettore Udofia created the dance oriented pieces. So the first volume that we put together was 9 songs and 10 videos, and that was in 2018. We workshopped it at Safe House Arts in San Francisco, a good friend of QCC. Shout out to Joe Landini and the crew over there. And then we've been working on a second volume.
Oh,
and I'm
okay.
very, very excited about this. This is with local Bay Area legendary band Skip the Needle, made up of Vicki Randall, Coffee Brown, Shelley Doty, and Katie Cash. And they will rock your socks off. The second volume of music is recorded, it's mastered, it's ready. We are about to order the CDs right now, and we're doing a release event. But I'm very, very excited about this music, and I feel like I can say that because I had so little to do with the music production on this side. I was like, would be a whole other episode just to talk about how Volume 2 came to be. But why we call it a docu-musical is that instead of characters talking on stage and then switching into singing and going back and forth, we created these mini, like 2-minute long little documentaries to set up each moment, and then we would screen those, and then we would come out.
So there's also video and people on stage, music. I mean, you really are like a triple, quadruple threat here.
So thank you. So I mean, so what we saw in the Patterns video there, so that ran behind us while we were out there singing to get you into the moment. Give that moment of the '70s. So that song takes place when she's already graduated high school, she's done an associate's degree, and she's working blue-collar jobs, factory jobs, warehouse jobs, daytime, going home, goes to bed, gets up at like 2 or 3 in the morning and writes until it's time to go to work. And she did that for years. She did that for decades. And so that song kind of takes place in one of these like wee hours of the morning with, a shadow version of herself, one of the prototypical versions of her characters. Being frustrated with her, and she's frustrated with her own life, and then trying to find that balance together. So that was so T wrote the music for that. I did the lyrics for that. Adrian sang Octavia. I sang the other character. So that's one of the songs that's set in kind of like the real world, or at least liminally the real world.
Right, because you have to, being an artist, like it's not usually a paid job. You usually have to have something else going on, but. Luckily, that seems to have also informed her work. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You can really read the material reality of her life. It's context that I think matters and is important because we want to be really careful about not telling a rags to riches story. That that because you were such a gifted or talented or hardworking or whatever that is, then you transformed and you rose above all of oppression and everything, and like that's not what happened.
No, that's such a like Hollywood version of storytelling, and our lives are a little bit more messy and complex.
Yeah, totally.
Interesting, I think too.
Yeah. So we have the songs, the scenes that are set in that everyday world, and then and her interacting with it, and then we have scenes and songs that are set in her imagination. And so those are the ones that Itoro and Jocelyn really came in this amazing way, and gave a really different sound, really kind of atmospheric. And so Hypnosis, which I think we showed a clip of in the intro, which the heads moving back and forth, that's one of those that's set kind of in the imagination world, but it's also based on a real event. So you were talking about those journals that you've seen where she says things like "see to it, so be it," and she's kind of motivating herself. That is stuff that came out of a self-hypnosis seminar that she did when she was 19.
What? Oh wow!
And so that song is kind of us imagining what might have that been like. Now it's of course dramatized, and our interpretation of it.
Maybe I need to do a little bit more hypnosis or something too.
Tread carefully. Go with someone you trust, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I've done a little bit of meditation, but sometimes you just need to get outside of yourself and like whatever the I've heard that research that like the negative messages often rise to the top, and you need like 7 positive messages to kind of counter, every one negative message.
Yeah, all that brain retraining that we need to do in order to, be our full, natural, whole selves in this, world of white supremacy, capitalism, and misogyny that is just trying to tear us and force us into these, productive little consumer citizen roles.
Yeah, and it's so that's what I think is so important, and why people talk about her work as being a seer, and being able to represent our times or recognize, they're like, wait, she spoke about this kind of man and this kind of, just diatribes in the popular conversation, and wait, that's what's happening right now. So she could definitely see that in science fiction is so amazing in that way. I think allowing us to imagine alternative futures and what we would do in those situations. So you're new to QCC. You started as an artist. You had that great experience of that taste of it, and now you are kind of helming, and this position is new. It's new to have like full-time staff for QCC. Do you have any like specific plans or ideas for the future that you have been thinking about or thinking through in terms of QCC and also the festival, right? National Queer Arts Festival.
Yeah, National Queer Arts Festival. So the QCC is in a really interesting place of organizational growth, right? The organization is 30 years old. And
ooh, yeah.
And we got our first employee staff member in 2020. So that's, a long time of people doing things as volunteers or part-time or here and there contractors and kind of trying to keep it together, move it together, help it grow. And now being able to stabilize a bit and kind of develop a core internal structure is really important, really exciting. And so now we are the biggest we've ever been. We've got 5 employees and regular communications contractors. So that's when I said 6 before. We have 3 full-time employees. That is like wild, right? For QCC, that is that way. 3 full-time employees, 2 part-time employees.
It's so amazing that all the things that QCC does and the artists that they're able to bring together, what they've been doing with so little, and still that's still a small group of people helping make so many moving parts happen.
So those moving parts are the thing that we are trying to put in line up our ducks a little bit more so that we can get out of kind of responsive mode and be more strategic. So, we're not making any big changes right now. Don't anybody worry.
So, Professor, would you say it's time for everyone to panic? Yes, I would, Ken.
But we are, we're thinking about, okay, what's going to make the most sense over the next few years? We know that, pandemic is, we may get out of pandemic range of it, but COVID is still going to be there and other things will continue and, difficulties with travel and I'll tell you this, the most helpful 3 words I learned in 2022, cascading collective trauma. And
what does that mean?
Yeah, so that's a situation where we have these big society level changes happening and we don't know yet which way things are going to land. And so there's great amounts of uncertainty. There's big breakdowns in systems, right? Supply chain disruption we're seeing on everything from medicine to cars to, food. All these things getting disrupted, right? And there's so much global level of stress. And that's the context that we're in, right? And we need to be smart about that, right? And be realistic about, okay, what does that mean? What limits us, but also what does that open up for us? So, virtual programming like Live and Queer has been taking off in different ways, yes. And so it's a thing that we are thinking about, okay, how can we harness this right now? How can we use this as an opportunity to lift up artists, to get their work out, more. I'm from a small town in the Midwest, and, if I had QCC programming in my house when I was a kid, it would have been really huge for me. So thinking about, without being kind of like coastal elite, we know better than everybody else, but we have a lot of resource here. We have a lot of people resource.
Absolutely. And a lot of people come this direction too.
Absolutely.
To find those connections and find those resources.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So figuring out, so that's one thing, kind of figuring out virtual programming, figuring out what does it look like for us to, to start leaning on community as a resource. QCC has historically done so much for so many people, sometimes overpromising, sometimes overreaching, trying to do more than we actually can. And so figuring out, okay, what does healthy boundaries look like for us as an organization?
No, because there's so much. I think that's the challenge with queer community. There's just so much, and sometimes when you come into community and you have that safe space to talk and work it out, like we're like, oh, okay, so I'm just going to keep asking for more and more and more, which we absolutely should, right? But like you're saying, we also need to like look at the smaller steps and see what we actually can do within a year. I mean, these festivals are planned so far in advance. So
yeah,
absolutely.
And I'll just say, another thing that we're trying to be more intentional and strategic about is our partnerships with other organizations. We're not all by ourselves here, right? There's lots of wonderful organizations like the GLBT Historical Society, like the SF LGBT Center, lots of different organizations that we can be partnering with to do collaborative programming.
Yes, but still keeping the spirit of how QCC came together too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So one thing that we're exploring is like, what would it look like if QCC did more intentional year-round programming or planned seasons? So again, nothing decided, nothing finalized, but it's something that we're curious about exploring. While we still have, our flagship program of the National Queer Arts Festival, NQAF, which I will only call NQAF, I will only refer to it that way.
NQAF?
Yeah. So Qaf is a letter in Arabic and Urdu. And so you just put an N in front of it, it's like NQAF. It sounds like a word to me.
I think that'll catch on. I mean, NQAF, that's a lot of letters.
It's a lot of
National
syllables.
Queer Arts Festival, NQAF. Yeah.
Yeah, NQAF.
We're going to make that happen.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's internationalize this thing. So we do have the 26th annual National Queer Arts Festival in NQAF coming up this year.
Oh yeah, what can we expect?
Oh my gosh, so many things I'm so excited about. We have, so we've commissioned 15 programs, so 10 in person, 5 virtual, and then there are our community partnership programs that will be co-presenting, like QuackMap, Queer Women of Color Media Arts Projects annual festival. We're doing some collaborations with some other organizations that we'll be talking about soon. But we have got a spread. We've got rock and roll. We've got visual art. We've got, of course, the Queer Afro-Latin Dance Festival that In Lakesh puts on. We've got a Live and Queer Live and Queer Live is happening.
You mean like we'll be able to touch each other consensually, of course?
Yeah. Music, there's sketch, comedy, there is dance, there's a Club Q retrospective happening at the SF Public Library with then an after party happening. We've got theater. It's that's all just the in-person stuff. And then virtually, we've got workshops happening. We've got, there's going to be a QCC Cabaret, which is going to be a kind of virtual variety with community submissions. And I'm really excited about it, especially if we get closer to it and things are falling into place and the venues are lined up and the details and the contracts are good and the artwork is coming out soon. I think by the time this episode comes out, we will have the artwork out, I believe.
Ooh, fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that. And, we definitely will, yeah. So, there's a lot to look forward to, and I'm just so excited about it. There's so many artists involved, and it, continues to be one of those hallmarks of queer Bay Area culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Building on what was done in the past, what was fought for in the past, and what people are actually doing year round and focusing it into a festival. I mean, I know I've been to a lot of different NQAFs, and National Queer Arts Festivals. And I just feel like, even though I live in the Bay Area, being able to see people, whether virtually or in person, I just get so excited because there's always new people that kind of come out. There's folks that have been doing the work, but also folks who've been doing the work in other ways and other spaces, and then bringing those people together. I just love looking at the audiences, not only the art, but the audiences themselves. They just make me so happy, and they make me feel so, like I'm not alone in this world. Being a queerdo.
Absolutely. And especially during, this time of cascading collective trauma, one of the remedies, it's because we can't stop all the big stuff from falling, but what we can do is make choices about who we spend the time with. And be able to have that soothing space, that generative space of the relationships among us.
Yeah.
And the festival theme for this year is Murmurations of Queer Power.
Oh, okay.
And a murmuration is when you've seen those starlings, those birds in the sky, and they have these beautiful ways of kind of constellating together and moving somehow in synchrony, but it's all made up of these little individual things coming together. That's what this festival is about.
I'm not going to say anything about the relationships of being in the room with past relationships as well.
I mean, there's part of it. Listen, I'm a librarian by training, and I think many of us remember first series of the L Word, and she's got that chart up, right? I mean, what she's doing is network science. That's network science.
Okay.
And it helps us understand why are we all so mad at each other all the time? Not at QCC, but in general, right? In organizations, when you get more than a couple people involved, like things get really complicated really fast.
Yeah.
And it's because that's an actual exponential growth, right? If we can recognize that this is a dynamic that's happening, then we can make intentional choices about how we communicate with whom, for what purposes. Now, you don't need to be overly structured. Oh, I can't talk to you because we have to. No, it's not like that. But it's a thing that can inform how we do the work that we do every day.
And you're saying that is social justice too, that kind of science, that library science, that thinking about that, that's part of our human condition, that is something we can learn from and, make mistakes and then learn from again, hopefully, or change.
An iterative process of refinement is what we call it in library science. Yes, you're on it. Yeah, so we can use this as a lens, as a framework, as we approach any particular thing. If you're an organizer and you're working on a campaign, you can think about, how can I be using this? There's lots of different things that I can talk your ear off about.
Yeah, that's super sexy, I have to say. Again, that's why I love librarians. I love libraries. I grew up having to go to the library because the after school program, wasn't enough time for me. So my parents, said, go hang out at the library and until we're out of work to go pick you up. So, special place in my heart for those kinds of spaces, for sure. If you want to see Octavia of Earth Volume 2, the release party is happening as part of this year's National Queer Arts Festival. But if you can't wait that long, you can watch some clips right now on the Uncaged Library YouTube channel at Uncaged Library.
And if you want to see Live and Queer live and in person, it is also in NQAF this year, so follow QCC's socials to get more details. Links for everything are in the description.
All right, that's our show for today. We'll see you next time.